What's up, everybody? Welcome to another Brograph tutorial. Thank goodness, it's been a while. I was playing Grand Theft Auto the other day, and there's a little boardwalk, right? And there's a Ferris wheel on it, if you can see that here. And I was walking around looking at it, and you know, the character gets on, and the cars, I guess we'll call them the cars that you're in, they stay straight up the whole time, obviously, because you wouldn't want to fall out of them. And so I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, what if you wanted to do that in Cinema 4D, and you didn't want to animate that manually? How would you go about doing that? So I played around a little bit, and I came up with a pretty fast solution. Now, of course, I say this all the time, but we're not building some extreme model of the Ferris wheel today. What we're going to do is just go over the mechanics, and we're just going to make a rough version. Now, if you want to take this to the next level and do some crazy, awesome, fully modeled version, go right ahead, and I'd love to see that. But we're going to focus on the mechanics, and it kind of goes like this. So let's take a look. First thing that I'm going to do here is create a circle. And this is going to be the basis for the moving parts. This is going to be our master right here. Then we're going to do two tubes, and they're going to be at -z orientation. And I'm going to take them and make them pretty thin. You can see that there. Now I'm going to put one about here and one about here on both sides of that circle spline. And also, while I've got those selected, I'm going to change the rotation segments to somewhere in the hundreds, just so they're nice and smooth. So these will be the sides. I'm going to create an A-frame. I'm just going to do that by making a cube, and I'm going to make it thin. Something like this. I'm going to rotate it, say about 70 degrees, I guess. And then I'm going to use the world coordinate system here. Command and drag to copy. I'm going to make an A frame. Nothing special. Just something that's going to be my outside of this. This is not really, this doesn't do anything as far as the system we're going to use for this to work. So you can build this any way you want. I'm just putting it there for looks, just so it kind of looks like a Ferris wheel. See? And if you really want to take it a step further, of course, you know, put a cylinder in the middle. Boom, there we go. Again, just for kicks right now. What we really want to concentrate on here are the seats themselves. So to create those, start with a box, a cube, make a little seat. This is our seat. I'm actually going to make it a little bit smaller. Okay, and that'll go in there as the seat. And then if you rotate while holding command, and then you can also hold shift to lock in every 10 degrees, you can rotate this and copy it to 90 degrees like that, and you can just bring it up like this so that you have the back part of your seat. And that's our rudimentary seat, no biggie. I'm also going to take them both and make sure I don't want them to be quite as big here. Oops. Let's do that not with the scale tool here, but with the actual size. What am I looking for? Z. Duh. Alright. So this seat fits real well in here. I'm going to keep both of those selected here, the cubes, and hit C, so that they're just ordinary geometry and not primitives. And then I'm going to go to the Objects menu, tell it to connect and delete. So this is one object now, see? Then over here, I'm going to change my, my axis. I want it to be slightly above the seat. You can see on here, it's above the back, because that's probably where something would connect to the seat and make it rock a little bit. So that part is built. Now, we got this master circle. I'm going to put that at the top so we can see what's going on here. Call that master. And then I'm going to take the two tubes that are outsides here so we can see what's going on. That's just for looks. And I'm going to make them children of the master. So the master is going to be the driver for this. And then for the tubes, so that we can actually see rotation going on, I'm going to double click down here in materials. And over here at this little arrow next to texture, I'm going to say I want a surface. And I can't see, I want to do a checkerboard. I'm going to throw those onto the tubes just so we can see actual rotation when we put it in here. Now, the cube right here, that's still labeled cube, needs to be labeled seat, just so we know what we're doing here. I like to make sure I'm really organized with my project, so I'm going to go ahead and put center right here, and then I'll just null all these together. By the way, Alt or Option G will do anything selected and put it into a null, and that's a good thing to know. So I selected these and put them into a null. This is my frame, just so it's organized. And we'll probably never look at that frame again, so just kind of forget about that. My seat also needs to be under this master circle. So I'm going to put it in here. And right now I'm not too worried about the center. You're not going to see it rotating, but you could put it in there as well. In fact, I'll just throw it up there. And make your project a little bit longer. Let's say 600 frames, because we want time to really see what's going on here. So the master is going to drive this thing. So when you click on master, you're on frame 0, you set a keyframe, and then you go all the way to the end. And let's rotate this thing around. Let's do it twice, I think. I don't know, maybe even more. Maybe 3.5, 4 times. Okay? No problem. There it goes. Now right now it's ramping up, and that's because this is set to spline. So if you select, this is something that makes it a lot easier when you're working with 1 or 2 keyframes, is use your keyframe manipulation down here. Don't open up your giant timeline if you don't have to. See, I'm selecting and I'm just dragging. And that's selecting the first keyframe right here. It's set to spline. I want it linear. Same thing over here. I'm going to click and drag, so I select that last keyframe and make it linear. And so you have linear keyframes. It's going to be a constant motion right here rather than spline. Now we're going to change that later on. But for now, we just have a regular motion going through these 600 frames. And we can tell that it's moving and everything's working, except that the seat is moving with the entire thing, and we don't want that. I'm going to go back to the very first frame. And here's my seat. First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put the seat in a null, so I'm going to hit Alt-G so that it's in a null. And name it. So you've got the null over seat, and then you've got this seat over here. I'm going to add a vibrate tag to this, because when seats are in one of these things, they're kind of swinging back and forth. So Cinema 4D tags vibrate. And I'm going to enable rotation, but not on this first field, on the last field right here. We'll start with 30 degrees. Now hitting play, you got a little sway, but it's still not pointing down. We want the sway, So we're going to come back to that. What I like to do when I want to disable a tag for a moment is I'll just make a null. Maybe there's a better way to do this, but I'll just place something on a null to get it out of the way. So this seat I'm going to set back to 0 degrees on all my rotations here. I'm going to add something called the PSR constraint tag. Now that's going to be on the parent null object, because we're going to be doing this. We're going to have the two separate things going. We're going to have the piece that keeps it steady the whole time, up and down, and then we're going to have on the actual object some sort of vibrate going. We don't want to put them on the same object. And the easiest way in Cinema 4D to do to find a tag or something that's buried deep is just to hit Shift-C, and it's a lifesaver. You get this little command box up here. I'm going to search for constraint, or constrain, I believe. Constraint tag. Alright, so the constraint tag is on this seat. And you've got PSNR constraints, the position, the scale, and the rotation. Only thing that we want to constrain right now is the rotation. So over here in the properties under PSR, I'm going to hit check. And then I'll get a tab for constraints for PSR. We don't want to mess with position, only rotation. And we need to set a target, basically, that this is going to constrain to. What is this going to be looking at to constrain itself to? Well, the easiest way I found is just to make a plane and put it on the very bottom. And we're just going to tell this seat to stay constrained to the rotation of this plane. So on that tag, I'm going to take the plane and drag it under here where it says target. And the first thing that happens is the seat turns. So if you go to your offset, you can actually put, I believe, -90 down here in RB, and it's facing the plane on the bottom, and it's facing the right way up here. So let's see what happens now when we hit play. There we go. The seat's going around the way that it should. Its rotation in that direction is being constrained. Now, the other thing you want to do is go back and put your vibrate tag back on the seat. So grab it from the null where you were holding on to it, and now you can see it rocking around. Now it looks like it's rocking a little too fast. It's really unnatural. We'll do something really small, maybe 0.3. So it barely kind of rocks back and forth, not even enough to notice. You could do more. You could do like 40 degrees, so it rocks even more. I'll show you kind of an extreme situation. I'll do 100 so you can see the big difference of how much it's rocking. That's a lot of rocking. It's almost too much. Almost throwing people out of the ride. So we'll go back to 40, let's say, which is still a bit much, but it's just so we can kind of see what's going on. And that all looks good. So now we're going to duplicate all of this. If you go back to frame 0, we'll go to a little side or front view here. Here's the seat, and I'm going to copy it. I'm holding down Command. If you're on a PC, I think it's Control. And we're doing a copy. I'm going to do, oops, don't want to have my pivot on. I'm going to put another one here. And I'm going to copy again. And I'm going to do another one here. Alright. The other thing I want to demonstrate is how easy it would be to make changes. So let's talk about an environment where you have an art director. And the art director takes a look at your awesome model and says, yeah, I think those need to be swinging more. Well, that's easy to do because you haven't done this with any manual keyframing. You've just done it with the vibrate tag. So if you select all the vibrate tags, you can say, okay, fine, I'll do more swinging here. And then they all have more swing to them. And then let's say he comes back and he says, yeah, you know what, that's really good, but I need these to actually stop. I need the whole Ferris wheel to slow down to a stop. You're like, all right, that's cool. I can do that. Now on your master, if you go toward the end, like frame 600, remember these are linear keyframes. I'm going to go back out 20 frames or so. So there's only a little bit of a difference between frame 560 and frame 600. I'm going to set a keyframe. Then I'm going to select over it. So I've selected this one keyframe, and if I grab the selection and I pull it back to around frame 400, then that small amount begins to happen there at a certain spot, and it gives the illusion, because it really is, that the whole thing is slowing down. Now since these are linear keyframes and not spline, we need to select them, turn them back into spline keyframes, because it's going to have more of an ease to it. See, when we hit frame 400, we'll start slowing down, and then it actually will go backwards just a little bit, which is the fact that it's a spline keyframe makes it do that on its own. So this is using spline interpolation to give the illusion actually that this is kind of a heavy ride. And here it comes again. It's going to come to a stop, and it's going to go backwards a little bit. We want this to stop a little bit earlier, come to a complete stop earlier. So select the keyframe that you got there, move it to about 500. So now this whole thing, it's got 3 keyframes. At 0, it starts up. At 400, it starts to slow down, and then at 500, it is completely stopped. And you have all this area out here afterward. Now if we play and we watch it stop, what happens? Well, the seats are still swaying around. What we want to happen there is at 500, all of these vibrate tags are still going to have an amplitude of 50 degrees, and we'll keyframe that by hitting Command and clicking on the little button next to amplitude. We're setting a keyframe for the 50 degrees that we've had throughout this whole entire thing of vibration. Then by about frame 80, we want it to go all the way down to 0, because there's not going to be any swaying anymore at all. So you click Command and you hit that button again. So 500 to 580, the amplitude slows down. And you can see when you play it, they kind of come to a crawl. And at 500, when the whole thing stops, it goes backwards a little bit, and the seats sway. It's nice looking. Now here's the problem. They're all swaying exactly the same. And in real life, they would kind of be swaying the same, but not perfectly, not numerically perfect. So if you go back and select all of your vibrate tags again, like this, and then under here, I'm sorry, you don't have to select them all. We're selecting them one at a time. I actually wish that there was a way where you could select a whole group and make them all random seeds, but I haven't found anything that does that. So one at a time, just change your seed randomly. So I'm talking click one, scroll it up random, scroll it down random, whichever way you want to go. So we just got a random seed, and what this does is changes that vibration to something random compared to the other ones, or pseudo-random compared to the other ones. So now, when we watch the end of this, it stops, and they're all kind of in a different place. And that's what we want. It looks more realistic that way. And that is one ghetto-looking Ferris wheel. But everything you need in order to make a really cool-looking one is there. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to hear more from us, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and go to Brograph.com. You can check out all the tutorials there that we have done, and check us out on Facebook. You'll see our posts, and Twitter. You'll see our posts as well when there's new tutorials out. And we get on the Reddit threads from time to time as well. I'm looking to get back in there more often. I've been pretty busy lately. And that's it. So until next time, later, bros. It's pretty good, I guess.